Marcus Webb adjusted his emerald-green diplomatic jacket for the third time, his reflection in the spacecraft's polished viewport showing a man trying very hard to look confident. His dark hair, slightly tousled from the journey, refused to cooperate with the formal occasion ahead. At 34, he'd negotiated trade agreements with 7 alien species. But something about this invitation felt different. The holographic message had arrived 3 weeks ago, delivered through official channels, but bearing an intimacy that made him uneasy. Queen Sevara of the Luminary cordially invited him to attend the Festival of Crystalline Moons, a celebration held once every century when their world's 3 satellites aligned perfectly. The honor was unprecedented for a human, especially one whose role was merely facilitating mineral exports. Approaching Luminar Prime, the ship's automated voice announced. Through the viewport, Marcus watched as the planet materialized from the starfield, a world of violet skies and silver seas. Its surface dotted with structures that seemed grown rather than built. The landing platform shimmered beneath his transport, a surface that felt solid yet appeared liquid. As he stepped out, the air tasted of ozone and something floral he couldn't identify. Waiting at the platform's edge stood 3 figures, each radiating an otherworldly beauty that made his breath catch. They were clearly royal. Their bearing spoke of centuries of refinement. The tallest had hair like spun platinum that floated around her shoulders, despite the absence of wind. Her silver gown clung to curves that would make any species take notice. Beside her, another woman wore midnight blue, her features sharper, more predatory. The third, youngest in appearance, dressed in rose gold that contrasted with her amber-tinted skin. Negotiator Webb, the tallest, spoke, her voice like wind chimes. I am Princess Nira, eldest daughter of Queen Sevara. These are my sisters, Yuna and Thesa. Our mother awaits your presence in the Crystal Hall. Marcus bowed, his diplomatic training kicking in. The honor is mine, your highnesses. Though I confess surprise at such a welcoming committee for a simple trade negotiator. Princess Thesa, the youngest, laughed a sound that seemed to sparkle in the violet air. Simple? Mother speaks of you constantly. The human who saw through Lord Cress's deception, who recognized the true value of our stellar crystals when others saw only decorative stones. I simply read the geological surveys thoroughly, Marcus replied, though something in Thesa's golden eyes made him wary. The way all 3 sisters watched him reminded him of cats, circling a particularly interesting mouse. They led him through corridors that defied architecture as he understood it. Walls flowed like frozen waterfalls, staircases spiraled in impossible directions, and doorways appeared where none had existed moments before. The palace itself seemed alive, breathing with ancient power. The crystal hall took his breath away. Vast as a cathedral, its ceiling open to the violet sky where 3 moons hung in perfect triangular formation. Tables carved from single pieces of luminous stone filled the space, already crowded with beings from across the sector. But his attention fixed on the figure at the hall's far end. Queen Sevara sat upon a throne that seemed to grow from the floor itself, her presence commanding despite her stillness. Unlike her daughter's elaborate gowns, she wore simplicity a dress of deep violet that matched her eyes, her silver hair unadorned, save for a single crystal that pulsed with inner light at her throat. She appeared young, perhaps his age, though he knew the Luminari could live for millennia. Her beauty wasn't the ethereal perfection of her daughters, but something more primal, more real. Their eyes met across the crowded hall, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest recognition of a kindred spirit, perhaps, or the first tremor of something far more dangerous. Ambassador Webb, Sevara's voice carried clearly, despite the crowd's murmur. Welcome to Luminar. Please join me. He walked the length of the hall, acutely aware of hundreds of eyes tracking his movement. Sevara gestured to a seat at her right hand, traditionally reserved for honored guests or potential consorts. The implication wasn't lost on him. "Your Majesty," he began, settling into the seat that molded itself to his form. "I'm grateful for the invitation, though I wonder at the true purpose of my attendance." Savara's laugh was rich and genuine, nothing like the musical tinkles of her daughters. Direct, I appreciate that quality in humans. "Very well. Marcus, may I call you Marcus?" "Of course." "Then you must call me Savara, at least in private." She leaned closer, her scent reminding him of thunderstorms and honey. "The truth is complicated. My daughters have reached the age where tradition demands they choose mates to secure our bloodline. Luminary custom requires they select from the strongest, most intelligent beings available among her allies." Marcus's stomach dropped. "And I'm a candidate, yes. Your psychological profiles, your genetic markers, your achievements, all suggest you'd produce exceptional offspring." She paused, her violet eyes studying his face. "But there's something you should know. While my daughters requested your presence, I made the final decision to invite you." "Why?" Savara's smile turned mysterious. "Because I wanted to meet the man who negotiates with equations instead of emotions, who sees beauty in mineral formations, who writes poetry in his ship's log when he thinks no one can access it." Heat flooded Marcus's face. "You read my private logs? Forgive me, but when considering someone for my daughters, thoroughness is required." She gestured to the feast before them. "Eat, enjoy the celebration. Tomorrow we'll discuss expectations more formally." The evening progressed in a blur of exotic foods and even more exotic company. The princesses took turns engaging Marcus in conversation, each demonstrating her particular charms. Nera spoke of politics and power, Una of art and philosophy, Thesa of adventure and passion. All beautiful, all accomplished, all leaving him curiously unmoved. His attention kept drifting back to Savara, who presided over the feast with grace, but seemed somehow separate from it all, alone despite being surrounded by hundreds. Several times he caught her watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read, calculation, mixed with something that might have been longing. As the evening waned, Savara rose to make an announcement. "Honored guests, we celebrate tonight not only the crystalline alignment, but also a momentous decision. Negotiator Marcus Webb has been selected as the prime candidate to join with my daughters, ensuring the continuation of the royal line." The hall erupted in applause. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Selected, chosen like a prize stallion. Every diplomatic instinct screamed at him to smile, to accept gracefully, to consider Earth's interests. Instead, he stood. "Your Majesty, might I speak?" Silence crashed over the hall. Savara's eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded. "I'm honored by your consideration," Marcus began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "But I'm not a breeding specimen to be selected and assigned. Where I come from, we call this coercion, regardless of how beautiful the cage. So with all due respect to your traditions and your daughter's desires, I must decline." The temperature in the hall seemed to plummet. Princess Nera's face flushed with anger. Una looked stricken, and Thesa's eyes blazed with something between fury and admiration. But it was Savara's expression that caught him a flash of something that might have been approval before her royal mask descended. "You refuse?" Savara's voice carried ice. "You understand this insults not only my daughters, but our entire world. I understand I won't be anyone's obligation, no matter how prestigious." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "If that makes me unsuitable, so be it." "Guards," Savara commanded, her voice arctic. "Escort negotiator Webb to the Sapphire Tower. Perhaps isolation will help him reconsider his principles." As luminescent guards approached, Marcus glimpsed something in Savara's violet eyes, a spark that suggested this wasn't anger, but intrigue. He'd gambled everything on reading her correctly, on sensing that beneath her royal duty, lay a woman who understood the prison of obligation. The guards led him away through silent corridors, leaving behind a hall full of shocked nobles and 3 furious princesses. But as he glanced back, he saw Sevara watching his departure with an expression that made his heart race not fury, but something far more dangerous. Interest. The Sapphire Tower proved less prison and more luxury suite. Marcus spent his first morning exploring the circular chamber with its floor-to-ceiling windows, offering panoramic views of Luminar's capital. Furniture seemed to materialize when needed, a bed emerging from the wall at night, chairs forming from the floor when he desired to sit. The bathroom featured a bathing pool that filled with water at precisely his preferred temperature. But luxury couldn't disguise captivity. The single door remained sealed, responding to neither his touch nor his increasingly creative attempts at hacking the lock mechanism. On the second day, footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Marcus straightened his rumpled shirt, expecting guards or perhaps another formal summons. Instead, Princess Nira swept through the door as it dissolved before her, her platinum hair arranged in an elaborate crown of braids. "Negotiator Webb," she began, her tone clipped. "I've come to discuss your reconsideration, Princess Nira." Marcus remained standing by the window. "Have you come to persuade or command?" Her silver eyes flashed. "On Luminar, they're often the same thing." She circled him slowly, appraising. "You embarrassed my sisters and me before the entire court. Do you comprehend the magnitude of that insult?" "I comprehend that being publicly assigned as your breeding partner without consent was itself an insult." Nira paused, something flickering across her perfect features. "You truly don't understand our ways. For a luminary royal to select someone is the highest honor. We could have any being in the sector. Then perhaps you should choose someone who wants to be chosen." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Tell me, Princess, when you imagine your ideal partner, is it someone selected by genetic compatibility charts? Or someone who makes your heart race when they enter a room? Hearts are irrelevant. Bloodlines matter. Legacy matters, does it? Because from where I stand, your mother looked more alive watching me defy her than she did receiving the adoration of that entire hall." Nira's expression shuddered. "You presume much about the Queen." "I observe. It's what made me good at my job." Marcus turned back to the window. "Will that be all, Princess?" She left without another word, but Marcus caught the uncertainty in her posture. He'd planted a seed, however small. The next morning brought Princess Yuna. Unlike her sister's imperious entrance, Yuna knocked softly before entering. She carried an easel and painting supplies, her midnight blue dress spattered with color. "I thought you might enjoy some company," she said quietly, setting up her materials near the eastern window. "The light here is extraordinary during sunrise." Marcus watched as she began to paint, her movements fluid and sure. "Are you here to convince me as well?" "I'm here because you interest me." Yuna mixed colors on her palette. "Most beings fall over themselves to please Mother and gain our favor. You did the opposite. I find that ... refreshing. Refreshing enough to consider that maybe forced pairing isn't the answer." Yuna's hand paused mid-stroke. "You speak of choice as if it's simple. But I've spent 3 centuries learning that duty outweighs desire. Royal blood carries obligations." 3 centuries, Marcus repeated softly. "And in all that time, have you ever felt truly connected to anyone?" Her brush trembled slightly. "Connection is a luxury we can't afford. Or one you've been told you can't afford." Marcus moved to stand beside her easel, studying the emerging painting, a solitary figure against a vast sky. "Is that how you see yourself? Alone despite being surrounded?" Yuna's violet eyes met his, vulnerability breaking through her composure. "How did you?" "Because I recognize it. Your mother has the same look." He smiled gently. Perhaps the greatest rebellion isn't refusing duty, but questioning whether the duty you've been given is the right one. She painted in silence for another hour before leaving, but Marcus noticed she left the canvas behind, that solitary figure now reaching toward a distant star. Princess. Thesa arrived on the fourth day with a crash, the door barely dissolving fast enough for her tumbling entrance. Unlike her sister's formal gowns, she wore practical clothing suited for movement, her amber-tinted skin flushed with exertion. Teaching the guards hand-to-hand combat, she explained breathlessly, collapsing into a chair that materialized beneath her. They're hopeless, too used to energy weapons. You'd probably give them a better challenge. Marcus couldn't help but grin. Is this the part where you tried to seduce me with sparring? Thesa laughed, that sparkling sound he remembered from their first meeting. Would it work? Probably not, though I appreciate the directness. Mother says directness is a human trait worth studying. Thesa's expression turned curious. Tell me truly, do you find us so repulsive that you'd choose imprisonment over our company? You're magnificent, Marcus answered honestly. All three of you. Any man would be honored by your attention. But you're not looking for a partner. You're looking for a solution to a political obligation. And I refuse to be anyone's solution. He sat across from her. Tell me, Thesa, what would you choose if duty wasn't a factor? She was quiet for a long moment, her golden eyes distant. I've always wondered what lies beyond the nebula veil. They say there are worlds there unmapped, cultures we've never encountered. I dream of exploring them. Then why don't you? Because I'm the youngest princess of Luminar. My duty is to what? Mate with a stranger because tradition says so? Marcus leaned forward. What if the greatest service you could offer your people is showing them there's more to life than obligation? Thesa stared at him, something awakening in her expression. You're dangerous, Marcus Webb. You make us question everything we've been taught. Good, he replied with a slight smile. She left shortly after, but her departure felt less like an ending and more like a beginning. It was on the fifth evening that Queen Sevara finally came. Marcus was watching the three moons rise, their alignment beginning to shift when he heard her footsteps. Unlike her daughter's various entrances, Sevara simply appeared in the doorway, having commanded the door to open with silent authority. She wore no crown, no ceremonial attire, just a simple silver dress that made her violet eyes seem impossibly deep. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders, and Marcus realized this was the first time he'd seen her without the weight of sovereignty pressing down on her. Your Majesty, he began, but she held up a hand. Sevara, please. We're past titles. She moved to the window, standing beside him to watch the moons. My daughters have all visited you. They have, each attempting to understand why I refused such an honor. And did you help them understand? Marcus studied her profile, the elegant line of her jaw, the slight sadness in her eyes. I tried to help them question whether it should be an honor at all. Sevara laughed, the sound rich and unexpected. You're undermining my entire social structure from a prison tower. Impressive. Is that why you came? To stop me? No. She turned to face him fully, vulnerability flickering across her features. I came because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the feast. The way you stood there, alone before hundreds, and chose dignity over advantage. She paused. When was the last time someone defied me not out of rebellion but principle? Perhaps that's the problem with being queen. Everyone either obeys or rebels. No one simply sees you. Sevara's breath caught. And do you see me? Marcus stepped closer, close enough to catch that thunderstorm and honey scent. I see a woman who's spent so long being what everyone needs that she's forgotten what she wants. I see someone as trapped by duty as I would have been by your arrangement. You presume to understand me after one meeting? I presume nothing. but I recognize a kindred spirit." His hand moved almost unconsciously to brush a strand of silver hair from her face. "Tell me I'm wrong." Savara closed her eyes at his touch, and when she opened them, Marcus saw centuries of loneliness reflected in their violet depths. "You're not wrong, but that changes nothing. I'm still queen. My daughters still need. What they need is a mother who shows them that life is more than genetic compatibility and duty." Marcus's thumb traced her cheekbone. "What you need is you," she whispered, the word barely audible. "I need you." The kiss happened inevitably, like stars colliding. Savara melted against him, her regal composure shattering as Marcus's arms encircled her. She tasted of starlight and suppressed desires, her responses eager yet uncertain, as if she'd forgotten how to be anything but queen. Marcus gentled the kiss, his hands moving to frame her face. "When was the last time someone held you? Not the queen, but you." I don't remember." Savara's voice broke slightly. "It's been so long since anyone touched me without calculation, without wanting something." "I want something," Marcus admitted, pulling back to meet her eyes. "But not what you think. I want to see you laugh without it being a political strategy. I want to know what makes you angry, what brings you joy. I want to know Savara, not Queen Savara." Tears sparkled in her eyes, catching the moonlight. "That woman? I'm not sure she exists anymore." "She does. I saw her when you watched me defy you at the feast. Just for a moment, before you remembered to be angry, you looked—" He smiled softly. "Free." Savara laughed through her tears, the sound transforming her face from regal beauty to something more human, more real. "You make it sound simple. It's terrifying, actually, but worth it." Marcus brushed away her tears with his thumb. "Stay with me tonight. Not as queen, not with any obligations or expectations. Just ... stay." She nodded, and they moved to the seating area that materialized larger, more comfortable. They talked through the night, Savara slowly unveiling the woman beneath the crown. She spoke of her loneliness, the weight of ruling for millennia, the gradual erosion of self under duty's demands. Marcus shared his own stories, growing up on Earth, the isolation of diplomatic work, the fear that he'd never find genuine connection. As the triple moons reached their apex, Savara lay with her head on Marcus's shoulder, his fingers playing through her silver hair. "The court will be in chaos tomorrow," she murmured. "The queen spending the night in the prisoner's chamber." "Let them talk," Marcus said, tightening his embrace. "Unless you regret, no." She lifted her head to look at him, her expression fierce. "I regret nothing. For the first time in centuries, I feel alive." "Then what happens now?" Savara's smile turned mischievous. "Now? Now we face the chaos together." "But Marcus?" "Yes? Thank you for seeing me, for refusing to let duty override your humanity. You've reminded me of something I'd forgotten." "What's that?" "That hearts aren't irrelevant. They're everything." As dawn painted the violet sky in shades of amber and rose, Marcus and Savara remained entwined, two souls finding unexpected solace in each other. Outside the sapphire tower, Luminar's court would soon awaken to scandal. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms with 3 moons setting beyond the windows, they'd found something infinitely more precious than duty or tradition. They'd found each other.